Hey everybody, Rob Hogue here, Bass Stalker Fishing. I wanted to do a video for the more, a different fall video for the more intermediate or advanced guys, just to give them a better idea of some next level stuff they could be doing at this time of the year. Up in the north, I firmly believe that we are definitely right on the cusp of just flat out fall pattern. We might be right at the tail end of the transition. But down south, your transition's probably starting right now. And what that means is they're just starting to move from their summer hangouts, starting to make their way shallow, because they don't go from their deep summer hangout right to shallow overnight. They gotta kind of make their way over there. So in the transition, what I like to do is I like to look at my map, and if I've been fishing all summer and I kind of know where the fish were kind of hanging out in the summer, I like to draw lines from those points to where I think they're gonna be in the fall, whether it's a shallow flat that they use for spawning in the spring, or a cove, or a feeder creek, or a shallow weed patch or something like that. And then I kind of like to treat it like I do fishing cover. I like to start working from the outside in. And it might take you 2-3 hours to locate them, but once you locate them, you know you're on them. And you know they're a lot easier to catch because they're a lot more aggressive in the fall. So probably my first place I would start, once I have those areas, I would start moving my way in. If they're not deep, I'll use my electronics and see if they're still in their summer hangouts, and if they're not, then I'm gonna move towards like those main lake points, or the mouth of coves, or the first steep drop next to a flat, and fish there for a little bit. Use my electronics and see if they're there, and then I'd move even deeper if there were secondary points like leading to a feeder creek. You have your main lake points, then you have your secondary points. I'd go to the secondary points, and I just keep working from the outside in, from deeper water to shallow water, and hitting the obvious spots where a bass would stage up until I found them. And those are going to be your main areas. When the fall pattern's in full effect, you're going shallow flats, you're going feeder creeks, and you're going coves. And it's not just because of the sunlight, the days getting shorter, the cooling water. They're moving because their food source is moving. Whether it's shad, whether it's bluegill, whether even the crawfish move a little more shallow during the fall. So they're moving for the similar reasons, but they're also moving because, hey, that's where their food's going. So they got to kind of stay with the food. Because they know they need to pack on the weight. So a lot of times you're going to find the bait, you're going to find the bass. There's going to be bass there. So you're looking for schools of shad, you're looking for bluegills loaded up in weed beds and in the shallows, or perch or something like that. You're looking for, hopefully you can find some crawfish or something and get a jig bite going. But they don't hang out, even in the dead middle of fall, they don't hang out shallow all day. So you really have to kind of try to figure out how long they're going to be in the shallows for. You could go into the shallow and you could be slaying them, and then all of a sudden the bite stops, and now you're wondering where they went. Well, a lot of times what'll happen is they'll come into the shallows, they'll feed for a while, and then a lot of times they're going to move back to that first piece of structure on the way out of that area. So if you're fishing a cove and you're catching them up shallow, and then all of a sudden the bite stops and you start coming back out of the cove, and there's a drop off, or there's some brush piles, or there's some stumps in the water, that's normally where they're going to set up. So they're going to go shallow to feed, and then they're going to drop back to that first piece of available cover on the way out. The same thing, if there is no cover, they might be back on the point of that, on both sides of that cove. They might be on those points. Or if you've been catching them on flats, they might be that they're probably going to come back to that first drop off or the very edge of the weed edge, the outside weed edge. And feeder creeks, you just find that first piece of available cover on the way out of that shallow water, and a lot of times that's where they're going to stage up during the day when they're not feeding, and then they'll come back up shallow when they want to feed again and then pull back. So it's a really easy time to fish. It's probably the easiest time of the year. And now that you know kind of what they do after they kind of leave that feeding pattern, now you can not only catch them in the shallows when they're feeding, now you can kind of pull back with the bass and work on catching them when they're just staged up for the rest of the day until they come back and feed again. And one thing you should know, the later you fish into the fall, the more and more those fish are going to spend in the shallows. So they might start out only coming up for an hour or two in the beginning of fall, but then towards the end of fall, they're going to start staying up there for a good part of the day. So I mean, it's great information. Hopefully it helps you. Hopefully it'll help you catch fish throughout the entire day in the fall. It's definitely helped me. Knowing this information has definitely helped me catch fish more all the way through the day rather than just catching them in the morning and in the evening. So hope it helps. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, guys.